When planning the road to success, there are a few steps to keep in mind. Identifying and solving the cause, facing and embracing change, goal setting, and being accountable. We'll talk about this today on Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. New and healthier habits lead to prosperity in all areas of your life and business. Now, here's your host, Chris Salem.
Welcome to Sustainable Success. I'm your host, Chris Salem. If you're just joining us here, you're welcome to the Voice America Business Channel here on the Lisbon platform. Again, we've been here since January of this year, and we are so excited if you are new to the show. Sustainable Success aspires each and every week, bringing subject matter experts to help elevate you and your business to the next level with cutting-edge information, most importantly, from personal experience and knowledge from the subject matter experts that we bring in each and every week. This show, again, is available to be viewed and listened to on Lisbon platform, including Spotify, Apple, and also YouTube on, of course, just audio in this case. And again, if we've been around for over 8 years now, hard to believe. And again, we've covered so many different topics. And again, if there is anything that we have not covered in the past that you'd like to hear on a future show, feel free to reach out to us here at chris@sustainablesuccess.net. And we'd be more than happy to investigate a content that you'd like to hear about for a future show aligned with the future expert. We also encourage you to also follow us on Facebook at Sustainable Success 2017. Again, there we've had many of our great guests sharing their words of wisdom and offering additional insights to their shows on that platform. So feel free to follow us there as well. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program, taking out all the noise out of social media. You get to come in and generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with. And again, we hopefully that you take advantage of that because it offers a wide array of different services not available to the general public. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about corporate clarity, cutting through complexity with OKRs. We're here with Philipp Schett. He's the CEO and founder of Wave 9, the leading OKR consultancy worldwide that he has grown into a 7-figure business, heading toward 8. But Phil isn't just one more strategy guy with fancy framework. He is an ex-Microsoft and Meta executive who's flipped the traditional OKR model upside down with this distinctive blend of precision engineering and American optimism. Yes, a German national establishing a management consulting company here in the United States. Philipp has overseen more than 300 implementations for organizations ranging from mid-sized nonprofits to Fortune 10 giants with more than 150K employees. While others are focused on tweaking goals and pushing certifications, he has concentrated on what he calls scaled productivity, helping organizations reduce millions in unproductive meetings, program management costs, and his work has actually helped clients save $200 million worth of time from meetings to real strategic work. Plus, he's got some impressive stories with working across over 60 countries, and when he's not improving how companies execute strategy, he's riding the waves or spinning tracks for fun. Now, that's balancing work-life, as we like to call it here, work-life harmony. Now, I could keep going on and on and on, but without further ado, we'd like to welcome Philipp Schett to the show. Philipp, how are you doing today?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It is a pleasure to have you here. And, we always like to start here at Sustainable Success with a little bit of the groundwork, the foundation, maybe the backstory behind, what you're doing with Wave 9 and your dedication, when it comes to, OKRs. And I guess if you could, let, the audience know, what are OKRs and, what can we be doing better no matter what organization size we are in that particular area?
Yeah, so thank you. Objectives and key results, short OKRs, is a goal-setting methodology that became famous in Silicon Valley first, and then later got really, implemented in organizations across the world. And my fascination with OKRs came because I I moved to the States in 2014. I moved to Silicon Valley, and I thought, okay, Silicon Valley is the place where people have the best ideas, and then they have the boldest dreams, and I wanted to be part of that. And then I moved to Silicon Valley, and it is an amazing place, but it's not that people have better ideas there. It's just that they are much better in executing those ideas. And so first I went there basically as an innovation scout. I came to scout innovations and find new ideas for German and European companies. And then again, I realized, okay, it's not the ideas, it is their ability to execute. And their ability to execute comes from, well, a really high degree of clarity, an extreme energy, and then, of course, well, unmatched capability. And so I basically, well, thought about that framework: clarity, energy, and capability. And OKRs help us achieve exactly that. They help us be extremely clear with our goals. They help us provide and generate more energy, not just another bureaucratic framework, but put energy behind achieving your goals. And then they help us make sure that we have the capability to execute those ideas and execute the goals that we just made clear and that we are now energized against. And so I really fell in love with OKRs because they help us do that in a very simple and lean framework. And yeah, that's why I fell in love with OKRs 10 years ago. And here I still am.
Oh, I love it. Well, let's talk about clarity, with corporate clarity. I mean, especially in today's environment, we have, most organizations operate in a hybrid model now. Like, you got people working in the office, outside of the office. They could be anywhere in the world. And oftentimes there could be breakdowns in clarity or communication. And this is where oftentimes individual team goals could fall through the cracks. Talk a little bit about what companies, what you've seen and what you've been doing that you could help companies get more clarity around that and navigate around these realities that are happening in the current work environment.
Yeah, 100%. And we are a pure remote company, and that's not easy to, well, steer sometimes. We're a global company with people really all across the world. And that's not always easy. But when you're a hybrid, it might be even more difficult, because if you're a hybrid company, which most of the companies we work with nowadays are, then you have to make sure that that communication doesn't break down between, and that people that are coming into the office have the same information than people that are not coming into the office. And the first step to get there is, well, to make sure, or that to appreciate that that doesn't happen by itself. It needs actually an intentional effort to drive that clarity. So alignment and clarity are often assumed, but they don't happen by themselves. So the first step is really make sure that you acknowledge that this alignment and that clarity in a complex environment doesn't happen by itself. And so I tend to be a bit more on the cautious side. And so I would rather overinvest in clarity, because clarity is really a prerequisite for energy. Because if you aren't clear about the goals, then you can't expect anyone to drive with high energy towards them. So really the first step is to acknowledge that it's not easy. And then there are several steps to create that clarity. And the first step is transparency. And so tactically, that's an easy step. You just publish everyone's goals. But from a mindset shift, that can be really, really difficult, because now you're moving from, oh, I had my own goals, and I had my goals for my team, and maybe I had goals for the little pirate ship that I was building within the organization. And now everyone sees what I'm working towards and what we are working towards. And so that transparency is key. And that transparency is also key for leadership OKRs or leadership goals. And that's not only for, let's say, the boring financial goals, but for actual, like tangible goals. And that transparency is a first step to creating clarity. But then there are many more.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Like, like a process that you feel like, because obviously this is always a work in progress in organization. And we're always constantly adapting now. I guess that's the big word now. The agility and adaptation is, the reality now. And those companies that resist doing that are the ones that are always going to be behind. Talk about the importance, like what you just talked about, Philip, and how the companies that are being proactive there in these times of, where agility and adaptation are going to be instrumental in growing and navigating through challenges, what they could be doing better.
Yeah. So transparency again is the first step. And that's an okay step. On the way, it's a step that actually helps many organizations already do much better. But then many organizations realize once they have transparency that they are doing too much, and they are doing way too much, and that they're not only doing too much, they are planning for unrealistic time horizons. So we have worked with teams where every team in the organization had to come up with their 3-year OKRs, 3-year OKRs. And that was a small startup in the tech space. So how realistic is and how valuable is it to create 3-year goals for every team in that organization? So instead, even annual goals, honestly, even annual goals are for most teams way too long for the time horizon. So instead, you have that transparency now, and now you need to break it down into much more manageable time horizons. And now, like, okay, let's go into the extreme. You can't really do that on a daily basis. That would be hyper agile. You change your goals every day, but that's probably not really worth the squeeze and probably creating too much admin overhead. So we have to find the right time frame between hyper agility, which honestly, sounds good, but would probably be a crazy environment to live in and not a very productive one. And then that bureaucracy that is setting goals for 3, 4, 5 years out. And the middle ground is typically set goals for a quarter and then make sure that you're not overestimating what you can get done in a quarter, which most people are, but focus on some very, very few things. And so if you have the transparency, and that typically comes with a lot of noise, and then you break down the noise by focusing and by making sure that you're managing the time horizons wisely.
Wow, great. Love it. Love it. And what do you feel like, in this particular area, like you mentioned like Silicon Valley, where like this is, became really, a lot of organizations were doing this, which other industries do you feel like have been slower to adopt, but it's going to be necessary? I know we got about 4 minutes to the break, but maybe we could talk about that before we go into the next thing you're going to talk about in the next segment.
Yeah, 100%. There are so many. Our clients are really from all across the world, but also really all across all industries you can name of. But there are a few where I think this is extremely beneficial. And so the first one that might be surprising is nonprofits. So we love working with nonprofits, not only because we care for their causes, but because the problem that this is solving is often so big in nonprofits. And so what do I mean? In those, think again about clarity, energy, and capability, about that trifecta. And energy is often extremely high in those non-for-profits. So in these organizations, they are mission driven. Everyone's excited about the mission and the vision of that organization, but they're often not really having mature management models. They are often driven just by energy, not necessarily by clarity. And then, especially nowadays, there's a lot of changes in the environment. And so that requires those non-for-profits to really hone in on a methodology that drives up clarity. So that's one of the sectors where we see a lot of demand recently, and I think it's very logical.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so important, for nonprofits too, especially when it comes to, not only, serving, their purpose of serving whatever they're serving in terms of helping people or, certain causes, but also it helps people, feel more confident in what they're doing and so on, I would think, especially if they're getting grants and certain things or funding from certain entities.
Yeah, 100%. OKRs can help not only internally, but also externally to make sure that, you're presenting the outcomes you're driving, you're presenting your areas of focus. And too often nonprofits are a bit of a black box. You put money in on the one side, and yes, something happens on the other side, but what happens in between is sometimes nebulous and that not often really not intentional, just because no one completely understands it. And that is frustrating for the donors and the funders of a nonprofit, but it's also very often frustrating for the team members within that nonprofit, because they want to make sure the outcomes are being met, and they don't often know exactly how to get something done in their organization.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful stuff. And I know we got about a minute. We just got about a minute left to break here. If you can, Philipp, before the second segment, can you sum up, some of the key points again about OKRs for those that are either been with us or just joining us?
Absolutely. Objectives and key results, OKRs, are a management methodology that, if done right, can provide clarity, energy, and capability for organizations. And we talked about especially the clarity aspect, where OKRs are being used to make goals and areas of focus transparent. They help us put those goals into more manageable time horizons and help us focus on the 3 to 4 things that are most important.
Wow. Excellent. So everybody, I hope everyone is taking notes. This is just valuable information. We just started, to kind of, establish the foundation around what Philipp is talking about. We're going to have more meat and potatoes when we come back after the break here on corporate clarity, cutting through the complexity with OKRs. Again, no matter what size organization, this is something that you can definitely benefit from. And again, we encourage everyone to share this show to another business associate, because this is a valuable content that you're receiving here. We got to go to break, everybody. When we come right back, we got more to come here with Philipp Schett, corporate clarity, cutting through the complexity with OKRs. We'll be right back.
What is balance? It's being true to your purpose and not being distracted by shiny objects, surrounding yourself with family and loved ones, nurturing your spirituality, maintaining healthy balance of emotional and physical wellness, and being present in the moment. Chris Salem creates awareness about unblocking mindset barriers for sales professionals, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and all types of people to have sustainable success at the next level. The solution evolves out of the problem or challenge. The issue is that many people and businesses manage the effect but do not address the root cause. You now have an opportunity to live your life and operate your business in the solution rather than the effect of your challenges. Schedule a time to chat about your goals and the person you desire to be by going to ChristopherSalem.com. We have group consulting calls, one-on-one, and other programs to assist you. It will be the best thing you do for yourself to see how sustainable success is possible for you in your life and business. Join us at the next level. Visit ChristopherSalem.com.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. Send an email to Chris at ChristopherSalem.com. Now, back to sustainable success.
Welcome back to Sustainable Success. If you're just joining us here, we're talking about corporate clarity, cutting through complexity with OKRs. Again, we're here with Philipp Schett he is the CEO of Wave 9. Again, a company that is doing miraculous things in the area of helping companies with better managing and leading their OKRs for better results. Again, you'll find out more information in the show notes about Philipp and best ways to get in contact with him here later in the show. So, Philipp, I would love to, maybe if you can define, outcomes versus outputs and what distinguishes both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. When you talk about clarity in an organization, you can create clarity on what everyone's working on, and that's good. But you can also create clarity on what everyone is working towards and what outcomes are they driving. And so an outcome is actually a change in either, it's value. It's value we are creating either for the business or for an internal client or for an external client. While output is stuff that are deliverables, stuff that we are putting out there. And so it's super easy for an organization to get into the trap or fall into the trap of creating clarity by creating clarity on outputs. And then everyone's asked to put out their to-do lists. Everyone is doing busy work. And that is the typical trap of working extremely hard. And we don't necessarily want to do that. We want to work smart. And that's where outcomes come into play. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that. And so what are some things that, again, we would be, getting things done is great. We can be productive and get things done, but being more efficient is always better, because now if we could free up our time and still have the same level of, output and or same level of quality in what we're producing, it frees us up to do other things and to, if that means developing new products, providing better service, whatever that means. Any things that you could share that could help organizations of any size that might be wrestling with that and not, for some reason, not able to find an answer?
Yeah, for sure. So think about the work in your department. Let's take HR as an example, because we're often working with HR departments in an organization, but marketing and sales and customer support have very, very similar problems. Now, and challenges. Now, let's look at output goals. So HR might say, okay, we are doing training sessions for our people, and we train them in, let's say we train them in OKRs. And so is now the goal of HR to conduct 10 training sessions? No, yes, okay, that can be necessary to train people. But if those 10 training sessions are done in a way that, actually no one cared and everyone was sleeping, and really they didn't provide any clarity, and they definitely didn't provide any energy and probably very little capability, then all of those 10 training sessions were for nothing. And so instead, we want to measure something that's closer to our actual point that we are trying to make, and that's an understanding of our OKRs. So instead of holding training sessions, we say at the end, we look at the quality of OKRs that are being set in this organization, and then we say, okay, is the quality of those OKRs increasing? Or even better, and then we have to define where our end goal is, but we could also say maybe teams are actually getting more done, they are achieving more. But of course, you have to, at the end, if you take it too far away from the output, then you're always ending up at world peace or earning more money. So you have to find the right outcome that's close enough to your actual work, but still something that actually increases value. And you can really go over examples in every team you can think of in an organization.
Nice. Love that. Thank you for sharing. And, what would be, in this case, like when it comes to OKRs, like breaking down individual, team, and then organization. Like I guess that sometimes can be a challenge, especially if you get a bigger size organization, of course. But what would be some things that like you could share that, like where companies can get really better at that, and making sure that the individual and the team, they're all in alignment.
Yeah. So the most important piece of the puzzle is typically the leadership OKRs. So we very often see that those leadership OKRs are extremely, extremely broad. They are often not including a lot of value. So we just worked with an organization that came to us and they had OKRs, and their OKRs looked like, okay, our top 5 OKRs for this year are create great products. We are a happy team. We generate the money we need to run the business, and so on. And so those are okay goals, but they are so broad that they don't inform any choices. So when you want to end up at something meaningful for your individuals and your teams, you have to actually start with something that informs choices at a leadership level. And so instead of saying, okay, our priority is to make our customers happy, which is probably always going to be true and is going to be there forever, you want to have a very concrete goal about something that you're actually prioritizing this quarter. And that might be, now you're launching one specific new product, or you're going into one specific geography. And so really, if you want to create clarity, then before we go into a process that we call localization, we have to start with very concrete leadership OKRs.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I think that's and in terms of these, when you do these goals, is it just is there like a certain way that you're helping them, like like in terms of breaking them down more specifically? Because a lot of times there could be a goal, but is it really broken down? I mean, I know there's the SMART goals, the acronym for SMART and all that, but I was curious if you recommend any particular kind of way of breaking down those goals.
So we typically recommend to do it in a OKR workshop. So really setting them in a workshop, because even more important than, let's say, if they are smart, that's important. They should be smart. It's better to be smart than to be dumb as a goal. But it's important that even more important than how you write down your goals is the discussion around it. Because to create clarity, you have to get rid of the sender-receiver problem. And so too many leadership teams think, oh, we're going to publish our goals, and then everyone who reads them is going to fall in love with them and is going to understand them, understand exactly what it means for them, and drive towards them with a lot of energy. And what happens in most cases is they are being presented at a town hall at Friday at 4 p.m. and everyone's thinking, okay, just those goals, and then we are off for a beer. And I've been in those town halls, and on both ends of either the sender or the receiver, and it's not the perfect way to really communicate those goals. So even more than saying, okay, they are smart, or they are in this syntax or in this form, is that they are being discussed. And that discussion happens in an interactive workshop where you involve your team members and are not just informing them.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. A lot like that. Yeah. And so important. And so I would guess with the OKRs, is it something like, again, you're going to have, short-term goals, long-term goals, and so on. And oftentimes, there's always, like, some people can get short-sighted with the short-term goals because they're focused on the long-term goals, or they get fixated on the short-term and kind of lose sight of the long-term. What would you share, like, in, something like that can, make sure those are in harmony?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point, and it's where goal setting can become dangerous, right? So if you are setting the wrong incentives and have maybe the wrong culture, or like maybe not a fitting culture to what you're trying to achieve, then it can become really, really dangerous sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me give you an example. If you are making the sales team push everything for a very short-term sighted goal, then, and you give them the ability to discount, you give them the ability to, basically accept any red lines, and just to achieve the short-term goal, then, well, it becomes really, really dangerous for the organization. Maybe 6 months later, maybe 12 months later, maybe never, but it is a risk that you're taking. And so to balance that, it's important that you set good goals, but also you have the right culture. And so teams shouldn't be just, let's say, measured by the success of their short-term OKRs, but they should be measured by, well, and promoted by the impact they have on the long-term viability of the business and the organization. And that's often a bit more difficult, but you want to set OKRs that are, well, both long-term and both short-term. That's important. So you have to do that both in one set of OKRs, but then you really have to make sure that teams understand that it's not just about hitting that goal, but it's about, well, understanding the broader context and then acting adequately. And so it's so easy to hit the goal but miss the point. And that, to avoid that, you have to really invest into the right capability and hire smart people that are not just gaming the system so that they are hitting this one OKR, but are understanding and putting the effort in to understand the context and then handle it appropriately.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And what would you say, like, we talked a little earlier about communication, being so important. Do you feel like, I guess it varies based upon, the size of the organization or type of business, or, could vary from project to project, depending upon what it is. But what would you say, like, in terms of frequency of communication? I mean, I know the word is consistent, but what does that mean? Is it, how frequent should it be to make sure that people are moving towards, achieving those OKRs?
Yeah. As a rule of thumb, the frequency is dictated by how long you can fly the machine and the plane without looking at the cockpit and without looking basically outside and on your instruments. And now, how long is that? It's typically a much shorter time frame than most organizations have set for updating their goals. So most leaders come in with, okay, let's maybe have everyone update once a month, and maybe bi-weekly. But then I ask them, okay, can you really fly the machine and can you really fly the plane here when you only get 1 month in information every month? And imagine what could happen within that month. And so, and then you don't get any new information because you didn't ask for it. So it's really important that, well, this becomes much more frequent. And our golden rule is just make it a weekly habit. And that's, for most scenarios, the right cadence.
Right, at a standard level. Like I said, that makes sense. I love that. And and in terms of, I guess with goal setting, is there something that your organization, I mean, obviously you teach them, you help them in this particular area, but is it something that, that requires some, skill development to get better at doing this, like on an individual level? Is there anything, like things that you could share that could help, like leaders who are obviously, putting together these goal OKRs at a higher level, but then, and how they drill them down to their people?
Yeah. There are many skills a leader needs to develop, and that that are important for, also this process. So creating clear and really concrete objectives is one of those important skills, and that requires you to be a good communicator, meaning that, well, you are aware of what the other party, which information the other party needs, and that is something you're putting into your goals. But then you across the organization, well, let's take a step back from the leaders, but the whole organization needs to really make this work. In the best case, you need to align on one syntax for your goals, and you need to think about goals in the same way. Because if marketing is thinking about them as KPIs, and then product is thinking about it as epics and Jira items, and then sales is just thinking about it in terms of dollar signs, then it becomes really difficult to steer this ship as one, and it becomes multiple ships to steer. And so really the training piece is important, that everyone is aligned on the same language for goals.
Yeah. I love the same, like, again, so leaving hopefully no room for assumptions and speculation, because that's oftentimes we just assume that people understood or get what we were trying to get across. Even more so with goal setting, where, if we're not on the same page, we need to know that up front. It's so important. Yeah. Love it. Well, if you can, Philipp, I know we're getting towards the next break. If you would like to just sum up, what you shared in segment 2 here for everyone, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, love it. If you think about OKRs, one of the most important aspects is that we are not setting goals for our outputs and the tasks that we do and the deliverables we create, but we are trying to set goals around the outcomes we're driving. And the difference is between the activity that we do and the task that we finish and the value we create. What changed because we did something? And that hopefully will stop us from doing busy work and enable us to work much smarter.
Wow. Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. And we hope everybody, again, that you're taking notes, and we encourage everyone to go back and listen to this show again. So there's going to be a lot of things that maybe perhaps you heard, but it didn't maybe register the first go around, a few things, but there's a lot of great information that Philipp has shared in this first and second segment of the show. We still got another one to come. So again, we highly encourage everybody to do that and share this show with a peer, another executive. Again, you're helping them to help themselves. We're all about collaboration here at Sustainable Success. We got to go to break, everybody. When we come right back, we got more to come with corporate clarity, cutting through complexity with OKRs. We'll be right back.
What is balance? It's being true to your purpose and not being distracted by shiny objects, surrounding yourself with family and loved ones, nurturing your spirituality, maintaining healthy balance of emotional and physical wellness, and being present in the moment. Chris Salem creates awareness about unblocking mindset barriers for sales professionals, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and all types of people to have sustainable success at the next level. The solution evolves out of the problem or challenge. The issue is that many people and businesses manage the effect but do not address the root cause. You now have an opportunity to live your life and operate your business in the solution rather than the effect of your challenges. Schedule a time to chat about your goals and the person you desire to be by going to ChristopherSalem.com. We have group consulting calls, one-on-one, and other programs to assist you. It will be the best thing you do for yourself to see how sustainable success is possible for you in your life and business. Join us at the next level. Visit ChristopherSalem.com. Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today. You are listening to Sustainable Success with Chris Salem. Send an email to Chris at ChristopherSalem.com. Now, back to Sustainable Success.
Welcome back to Sustainable Success. Our show is being brought to you again by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it also features now a new section to their platform that is for professional athletes. Yes, for those professional athletes that are now transitioning into everyday life, perhaps maybe a new career. Maybe it's buying a business or starting a business or a franchise. You can now form groups with other professional athletes that are doing the same thing to make the transformation more seamless with your process. So again, if you'd like some more information, you can check them out there. And there's also a podcast, From Athlete to Entrepreneur, that is featured on the website as well through the CEO and founder, Rob Finkelstein. So if you'd like some more information about that particular area of the platform and want to listen to the podcast, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. So Philipp, just again, thank you for all this valuable information that you're sharing. And you did such a great job what your organization does in terms of helping, organizations break down these OKRs so they don't seem more complex, that can now give them a better vision of where it's taking them in terms of results. If you could talk about, I guess these result rituals that organizations now can kind of, start to, incorporate so that they could start to see these goals lead to those results.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started Wave 9 and when I started working with OKRs, I was often traveling from San Francisco to Chicago to Philly to New York. It was a great time in my life. And I've helped organizations set OKRs in those OKR workshops that I described. And it was a very, very fun time. But then I was 2 weeks with an organization in Philly, then I was 2 weeks in Chicago, and it was a fantastic time. Now, something that I realized when we worked with those organizations is that whenever I flew back to San Francisco, the old habits, just like a rubber band in those organizations, they came back to their old habits. And so when I called them up 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, and asked them, hey, you remember those amazing OKRs that we have set? We were all super energized after that workshop. How did it go? And often enough, the answer was, yeah, those OKRs. Yes, sorry, we got really, really busy. We haven't really looked into them at all since you left, but would be amazing if you come back in 2 or 3 weeks and we set new OKRs. And it's nice that people wanted me back, but it's also really, really disappointing if you spend your lifetime and, well, honestly, also your client's money into something that doesn't really provide value. So now we knew that we had to move from setting OKRs and setting goals into something that actually makes them achieve better results. And those are the results rituals. So that makes us move from a set and then forget set of OKRs into something that actually drives our focus every week. And if it drives our focus every week, then, well, it'll drive our energy and that will drive better results. And so what are those results rituals? We have 6 results rituals in total, and all of them need to either increase clarity over the course of a quarter, they need to increase energy, or they need to increase capability. And so on the first aspect of clarity, those are typically the business reviews. So we call it a monthly business review. And coming from a quarterly business review into a monthly business review, so you increase the cadence and you make sure that you're looking at those OKRs on a cross-functional level every month. And that is increasing the clarity. Then also you're increasing the clarity with your weekly team meeting. So in your weekly team meeting, you shouldn't just look at your outputs and your tasks. You should look at your OKRs again and make sure that you're actually doing the right things and that you're focusing on the OKRs that you have set. And so reminding that every week. But that's clarity. But we also need to increase energy. And because in most of those cases, right, they were starting really, really strong. and then it fell off a cliff because life got busy and they didn't really increase it. It's like running a marathon. If you run a marathon, you need to pace yourself and you need to really make sure that you're running in more or less equal pace. Most of these organizations were running 2 week sprints and then they were burning out. And so that's really dangerous. And so instead, you're trying to celebrate some micro wins every week. And so instead of, again, celebrating only once a year when you go into the long winter break, maybe you're now making it a habit to celebrate micro successes once a week. And it can be beautiful for organizations. And then one of the most important results rituals is the one-on-one between the manager and their team members. And that is especially important because, yes, you want to increase clarity. Yes, you want to increase energy in that, but you also want to make sure that the right capabilities are in the team. So you are training your team members, you're providing the right resources, and you're leveling up the team so that the team can have the right capabilities. And yeah, that is how we move from setting and forgetting to actually changing something in an organization.
I love that. And that process really stood out for me. And what I loved about what you said about celebrating wins, even on a weekly basis, those small wins add up to bigger wins, right? Everything adds up. And that doesn't mean you have to celebrate just, like something took you a year to do or 2 years or 3 years. It's celebrating those victories along the way, especially if you, I guess, overcame an individual, a team, or even an organizational obstacle or challenge. Those are things I feel like, what I got from what you shared, like, make people want to keep coming back and doing more and that more committed to getting those results.
I think it's one of the most underrepresented aspects in business, that business and teams need momentum.
Yeah.
So imagine a pro football team that would only celebrate the Super Bowl. Like, and it would never win the Super Bowl.
It wouldn't.
It would never get there. So you have to win. You have to celebrate the wins across the quarter.
Oh yeah, so true. So in essence, again, results, are these small victories, eventually the end result, of course, but are a series of these small wins throughout the process. And there's sometimes during the process, you're going to get setback. You're going to fall off the horse and you got to get back on, whether if that's, again, individual or team happening to the team overall. But nonetheless, yeah, that all great. What else could you share about, keeping people in alignment with those results, but yet not tied to them, where now it's taking them away from the process that will get them there. So they don't become overwhelmed, that they can okay, I can only control this right now. I can't control this. So I'm going to focus my energy there. I think sometimes people can get caught up in the control they can't control with it, but what can bring them back to what they can?
Yeah. So I would say that organization or people or team members and organizations need to, of course, so the notion of control is an important one, but it's also a difficult one, because at the end, there is very little we actually control, right? I cannot control a customer or a client to sign the agreement.
No.
A sales team member can't directly control that, and still it's their goal. So I would recommend to organizations to not get bogged down too much by direct control and still set those. Of course, it doesn't make sense to set a goal like, okay, it's going to be beautiful weather tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, you don't know what can happen.
That can happen or not, right? Who knows? But if you can influence it, right, then it's probably a good goal. And maybe that influence is very indirect. Yes, that can happen. And maybe it's soft, and maybe it is through lobbying, or maybe it is through, well, sometimes nudging, but still you gotta control it. And then, well, don't get bogged down too much by not achieving a goal. Meaning that the goals that we set are of course we celebrate, and of course it's better if everyone hits those at 100%. But at the end, those goals that we are setting are helping us to achieve those longer term goals. They are helping us to achieve financial success, financial freedom. They are achieving more client satisfaction, et cetera, et cetera. But those goals along the way, well, some we will hit, some we won't. And let's not get bogged down too much by those leading indicators, and rather use them to change our behavior and course correct, and not get demotivated.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really great information. Yeah, so true. And like I said, it's I always what you just said. I see it like a puzzle, right? I got to work with the pieces I have in my control. I can't worry about what I don't right now. So I'm just going to maximize what I can right now. Now tomorrow, like you said, with the weather, it might be in my favor because I might have more pieces that might come into my control, and I can connect them and keep doing it till I complete it at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff there. What else could you share, Philipp, here when it comes to like that, those results rituals? Anything else that you feel that could change that frame of thinking individually and as a team to, gear them towards those results?
Yeah. One of the pitfalls when organizations introduce a structured goal setting methodology or OKRs is that very often they create a bureaucratic nightmare. So, and that bureaucratic nightmare then leads to people getting frustrated because now they're spending too much time updating a management report and reporting up the chain or managing downwards because everyone's frustrated. So it's really important that you create that in a very lean fashion. So instead of bugging down everyone with, oh, you need to update your time spent in whatever fashion every day or whatever it is, you should have not more than 3 metrics per team member being updated by them every week. And so those 3 updates, 3 metrics, shouldn't take longer than 5 minutes at the most for each team member. So this isn't necessarily about a huge bureaucratic system, and it's much more like brushing your teeth, which you shouldn't do just once a quarter, but you should do very, very frequently, ideally a couple times a day. And so that's my number one recommendation. Keep it lean but frequent.
Yes, I like that. Lean and frequent. Yes, like that. I love it. Yeah. So great, just great information. I kind of love what you've shared here today. I mean, just so much valuable information, Philipp. I know we could go another hour and talk on this topic, and I want to make sure that again we bring you back for a future show here at Sustainable Success to elaborate on something either directly, indirectly to what you shared with us today. I want to give the rest of this time to let the audience know like how they can get in touch with you. What are you up to, and anything that you would like to provide them?
Absolutely. Yeah. Please follow me and my company on LinkedIn. We're above there. That's the easiest way to get in touch with us. And if you're curious now about OKRs and how goal setting can increase energy, capability, and clarity in your organization, then we have a free course on OKRs that I would love to share with you. So if you get in touch, I will send you the link to our free course. And yeah, would love to share more about the right way of setting goals with all of you.
Great. And that was something that what Philipp just said there, the right way of setting goals. Many of us think that we're setting goals the right way, and in reality, it's not the case. And this is what's making the process harder, sometimes unbearable for certain people. And I'm not saying that achieving results through your goals is an easy thing, but there is a better way to do it. And this is somebody that, again, we encourage everybody, whether it's for your business or an individual. This is something that, again, reach out to Philipp and tap into his resources with his team, because there could be something that maybe you're not aware of that could be taking you to the next level. So before we conclude, Philipp, I'd just like to see if you'd like to leave just a high impact statement, 15 seconds, 20 seconds with the audience as we conclude this show.
Absolutely. If you want to increase energy, capability, and clarity in your organization, then goal setting is one of the best ways to get there. And you should really think about OKRs, objectives and key results, as the methodology that creates that energy, clarity, and capability.
Excellent. Love it. Love it. So I hope everybody had received great value. I know I did. And I hope everybody, again, encourage you to go back and listen to this show on either Spotify, Apple, Lisbon, YouTube, whatever you prefer. Our Facebook page at Sustainable Success 2017. Again, we encourage everybody to listen to the show and share it with a colleague, peer, or friend. Thank you so much, Philipp, for taking the time to be with us here with your busy schedule.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Sustainable Success. Again, we are committed to bringing in subject matter experts like Philipp to share their words of insights to help elevate you and your business to the next level. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week at the same time. Take care.
Thank you for tuning into Sustainable Success. Be sure to join Chris Salem and his guests every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Time and 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Business Channel. Have an incredible week.